People always, kind of don't quite know how to approach Richard. I think the President of the United States even had a problem when he had to approach Richard.
When you're out in public and you're approaching individuals with disabilities, I would say it's a little bit different with kids versus adults. And there was a 4th of July when I was up on the rooftop watching the fireworks show in D.C., and a little girl came over to me and she told me her name and told me she was 7 years old, and she said, I tried to talk to you on Tuesday. And I said, I must not have noticed you. Did you actually come up to me? And she said, no, my mommy grabbed me and said, you're not allowed to ask him questions. And she said, I told mommy, you're a nice man. I can. And I said to her, you know what? Next time you see me, make sure you come and say hello to me and ask me questions. I have no problem with you doing that. And then we watched the fireworks show together. And it was really funny because as she's telling me the story, her dad's leaving the room laughing hysterically, and the mom was just horrified and walked away with her little brother, who was about a year old.
His openness and his willing to be very patient and kind with people, that he knew people were looking at him differently. But once you started talking to Richard and once you knew Richard, you no longer saw any of that.
It's all how you view people when you see them. Because sometimes how you view people is how you think and how you approach people.
I met Richard back in the 1990s when he was working with the Southern California Rehabilitation Service. From day one, he was an advocate for those with disabilities, and particularly for those who want to live independently. For the first time I met with Richard, and I didn't know that Richard had no arms or no legs, and his history. And so he says to me, I have an agenda and that I want to talk to you about, and he had prepared paper. So I'm thinking, okay, Richard, how are you going to turn the page? Because I saw 2 or 3 pages. So I sort of nudged closer to the table to assist Richard. When all of a sudden that head goes down and the page turns and Richard picks it up with his teeth, and the rest is history, and he got a big kick out of the look on my face.
One cannot be but amazed when you see Richard because of what he does and what he can do. You forget about 2 minutes after meeting Richard that he doesn't have any arms or legs. That's just something that I've come to learn, and you can't help but appreciate who he is as a person.
I grew up in a foster home, and I was very fortunate that I had a home from the very beginning, meaning 3 months old until now, who I consider my foster mother and my mother. Grew up in a family of 8. 5 of us had disabilities, and there was always an expectation that we were going to succeed. Whether we had a disability or not, we had to learn to address our needs as people with disabilities and be able to adjust to how society was reacting to us. But there was no doubt from my mother's expectations from beginning until now is that we were going to be doing our very best and that we were to succeed and learn from our mistakes.
Well, Richard was a student of mine here at California State University, Long Beach. Richard was not a straight A student here, although, sorry Richard, I'm telling on you here. But Richard had a lot of creativity and was a great organizer, and I saw that in him early on when he worked for me for a brief time, and then when he eventually went on to do great things.
As a little kid, me growing up without arms or legs, I really never understood what my possibilities were. But as I was growing as an individual and as I was becoming an adult, I began to realize that I had certain skills and abilities, and I really needed to make myself an asset.
When he was a user of Access Services, I know that he blazed many trails in terms of going to the County Board of Supervisors to make sure that they had the services, timeliness of ridership, just making sure that people knew how important access was.
It's all been about accessibility. It's all been about independent living. It's never been demanding this or that or an entitlement kind of a situation.
I think a lot of our policies and procedures are in place and are here because of Richard and Joe King's vision.
He sets an example just by being who he is and what he's experienced. I think that allowed him, when he started his career, to kind of bring that expectation of independence to other people.
Yeah, independent living is really about people with disabilities having an opportunity to live free from nursing homes and integrate into the community and all aspects that you think of the community, from education to having a good job, and just really making a difference and being a part of the community like anyone else. Going to an independent living center and seeing people with disabilities being successful and learning to do things on my own, and most importantly, being able to live on my own, was very important in terms of my growth and getting my education, and then ultimately having jobs that I never dreamed of or thought I'd ever have. I worked for 3 years for the Obama administration, and I was a senior advisor to the Secretary LaHood at the U.S. Department of Transportation. And I returned to the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, where I worked prior to spending 3 years with the Obama administration. I created an office called the Office for Access and Functional Needs within the Governor's Office of Emergency Services on planning and responding to the needs of people with access and functional needs during disasters. So my role is to advise the state as to what they need to be doing, and then be available to local governments to provide technical assistance. I may also be advising where resources are so that we can respond properly to people's needs.
We have come a long way because of Richard in California. We still have a long way to go, but Richard has really blazed some tremendous trails in that area.
We've always been connected to Richard, and he's always been a great resource for us. He was on our board at one point. He was on our advisory committee at one point.
I think that Richard has helped Access Services and myself in almost every position he's had, and really getting a feel for the community and where we're at.
When I have an idea or a question, I always harass David and Shelley. They're always copied on the same emails. I think what's important with some of the staff that have been here for a long time is that they're part of the community, and they care about the services and about what's going on, and that's what's really important. There's a lot of things that I think of and I like to see in California and across the country, and we will not achieve true equality in terms of air travel until we can take our wheelchairs on an airplane like we can take our wheelchairs on a bus. We should dream big, and we should have expectations that are big in terms of what we want to achieve, so that people with disabilities are treated with dignity and their responses are accessible.
I hold him up as a role model. He's in Disabled Student Services Hall of Fame here at the university. I know he's in many other people's Hall of Fame as well.
Thank you for the Spirit of Accessibility Award. It means a great deal to me in terms of things that I've been able to achieve with the community over the last 20 years.
No one is more deserving of the Spirit of Accessibility Award than Richard. Richard, it's well deserved. Proud to call you a friend. You've been a great advocate. Congratulations on this award.
And I look forward to working with you for the next 20 years. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Richard.